Oh, great. Oh, we're live. That was a scary thing.
It was.
Oh, my. Good start.
Yep. We both look like we're
I look
asleep.
like, yeah. I know. Can you tell I've been at a retreat, ladies?
Oh,
this is day 3. This is day 5 for me for retreats out of 9. After today.
And you don't get a break between this set of
and
3 and the next set of 3.
I'm not done until Sunday. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. My bag's under my eyes.
Let's see what you look like by Sunday night.
Yeah. Glad there's no reveal Friday night. Oh my, we got a few people on early this morning. Hello everybody.
Good morning. You ought to smell the house. When I come in here, she cooks her breakfast and it has cinnamon in it, and oh, it smells so good.
I just literally swallowed the last
She did.
mouthful.
She did.
I got up this morning at 7 to put that quilt in the frame, and I just didn't take time to eat. But I have to leave here and run down to the retreat. Isabel's at the retreat.
You can't even talk.
I can't. This is a good start.
Mm.
Filling in for me, and as soon as I'm done here, good morning, Shelley. Good morning, Lorraine. Good morning, Carol Ann. Valerie. We have 26 people up bright and early for this. I guess this isn't really bright and early. It is 9 o'clock.
No.
Good morning, Joanne. Seraphy.
I think that's a new name.
Is
it or
no?
not?
I think
No?
I think
Okay.
we might have dealt with her last week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Alabama. Oh my soul! What time is it in Alabama, Joyce?
Yeah.
I've seen your name online before, on quilting sites or somewhere along the
Wally's
way.
watching.
Yeah, Wally's awake this
He
morning.
must be working on his solo.
Hi, Lynn. Okay, we've got enough people on. We will get started. So, Twyla, I'm going to let you take over.
Okay, she's probably tired of talking at the retreat,
I am
right?
tired of
So she
talking.
wants a break. So, ladies, today you're going to have a fair amount of homework. You might not be happy to hear that, but we figured this was a good week to do it because next week there won't be a sew-along on Wednesday morning. It'll be 2 weeks before the next one, which is the 20th, I think I said. So that's why we decided this would be a good week to give you the blocks that you've
That
got a
has
fair
the most
amount of
homework.
homework to
Yes.
do. Oh, here's...
Oh, it's 7:05 where Joyce is, and she's already sewing.
And she's sewing. Yeah, she's right.
She's dedicated.
I guess so.
Welcome to my world, Joyce.
Her hurt's really good. I started it.
Yeah,
this morning.
it is
He
really
scared her.
good. He scared me. Yeah.
Good morning, Marie. Okay.
Okay, so we are doing pinwheels this week. So the good news is that the basic components of the pinwheel we covered in, was that the first week or the
Yes.
second week? So you start with your half square triangles. So we're going to talk about, just briefly review the 2 different methods that we did the half square triangles, and then just how to assemble into a pinwheel. And then I've got a few little things to point out and a whole new technique that I had to research to figure out to show you guys. And we will review that. So hang on to your heart. We'll see how good you guys' heart is this morning. We have to make 56 pinwheels in the next 2 weeks.
And did you figure out, for those of us like me making 3 quilts, how many do I have to make?
So Deborah has to make a lot of pinwheels.
Yes, I do.
So the 2 methods, if you remember, where's your other blocks?
Here.
Okay. So the first method is the basic one that we covered in the half square triangle, where you get 2 half square triangles out of your square by sewing one of your prints and one of your planes together, drawing. You have to have an imaginary line from corner to corner and then a 1/4 inch seam allowance down each side. You're going to stitch down those marked lines if you can see those lines.
But the reason you've got those marked in instead of the straight corner to corner is because you use what tool?
So this is what I used. I don't know if you remember.
So
Uh-oh.
we had a little blurb there.
Yeah. So we had a couple different tools that we had showed, but there's 2 or 3 different types you
Hold
can
this
get.
up.
So you actually can put, if you see this slit right here,
Or some of them just have a line.
some just have a line. So you put that on the corner so that your point is actually, where am I? Ooh, there I am. So that your point is actually in that slit on the top and the bottom, and then draw a line down either side. So we reviewed that in the week that we did the half square triangles.
But if you don't have this tool, just draw a line down.
You can take a ruler and put the 1/4 inch mark of your ruler on the points, and then draw your line down the edge, and then you'd have to flip it and do the other side, right?
Yeah.
So
Joyce,
either way,
Joyce thinks 56 is a lot too.
yeah, it is a lot, and they're not big, as you can tell, because this makes 2 of your, yeah. So this method, if you remember from that week, you don't end up dealing with bias. You end up with your length and your width of your fabric that you're dealing with when you're sewing, so there's not as much stretch. The other method, this method, is where you make your squares bigger, and you sew a 1/4 inch seam all the way around the 4 sides, and then you're going to cut this puppy corner to corner this way, corner to corner that way, and you will end up with, oh, here she comes,
4 of
with
these.
4 of those, that when you open them up, you get your half square triangle. The deal with this method is that when you cut this way and this way, your edges are then on the bias. So you have to be a little bit more careful not to stretch too much with this method. The good news is, if you choose to do this method, you get the 4, what?
I didn't have to square up either.
Right,
With that
right.
method.
Well, and we're going to talk about that. But the good news is you get the 4 half square triangles that you need for each pinwheel if you do this method with just one set of 2 blocks. This method, you will need 2 of these to get your 4 half square triangles to make your pinwheel block. So what you're cutting is, and for those of you who may be joining the first time, a little bit later on, I will actually put the cutting, once this video is posted, when I get a minute, I will go in and edit it, and I will put the cutting instructions on there so that you can see what they are. So if you're going to do this method, you're going to actually cut, your squares are going to be 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch, and you need 102,
56 they need?
56 and 56.
This
And
is
you,
112.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You need 112 of these plain and 112 of prints. Now, the only thing to remember when you're doing this with assorted prints is don't have an odd number. So don't have 1 of these or 3 of these, because you're going to need 2 of your print squares to complete 1 pinwheel block.
Unless you're doing scrappy.
Unless you're doing it totally scrappy, in which case that's fine. If
Yes.
your 4 half square triangles in your block are all going to be different, that's fine.
That would be cool too.
That would be cool. So you need 56 2.5 inch square, 112 2.5 inch square background, 112 2.5 inch square prints in whatever combination. If you're using 10 different prints, just figure that out, you know, what you need for each. Okay, so that's that method. You're cutting for this method, you would only need,
And is there squaring up with this?
okay, with the
Sorry.
2.5, there is squaring up. There is squaring up with that, which is probably not a bad thing.
Which isn't bad, no. 'Cause
No.
especially if you use this ruler here.
Yeah, which we demoed that also in the half square
Yeah.
triangle week. Whoops, my table's wiggling and wobbling and going
That's
on.
going to hold this. This is the slotted trim ruler.
Yeah, so you would need the one to square up at 2 inches.
Yeah.
So that's what your finished half square triangle is supposed to be, 2 inches. Now, if we're doing this method where you get 4, remember you have bias edges. You get your 4 half square triangles per block, so you get enough for 1 pinwheel. Now, if you want enough to square up, you need to cut these at 3.5 inches square. If you want to live on the edge like Deb and think that you can do this without squaring up,
I'd like to say, if you're perfect like Deb.
so
No, I didn't mean
we
that.
experimented, and
Yes.
3.25
Yes.
square will
If-
give you, if your seam allowances
It's
are really
realistic.
accurate, you will get your 2 inch square
And you
out
won't
of
have
that,
to
and you
square
won't
them up.
have to square up.
But I have a really good 1/4 inch foot, so it's easy.
Right. So it's totally up to you which way you cut them. At 3.5 inches square, you are definitely going to have to square up. At 3 1/4, be very careful with your seam allowances. Be very careful when you cut corner to corner that it's an accurate cut, and you will end up with your 2-inch square. So therefore you would need 56 of the background squares and 56 of the different assorted prints. So is that clear as mud, people?
That was very good, Twyla.
Okay, so now the next thing is when you're actually sewing those together, it's a good idea when you're pressing to press all of your seams towards your print. And then when you do that, not towards your background, but towards your print, then when you do that, when you go to fit your two together, they will nest very nicely down here in the seam. And if you give me another one of these.
Mm-hmm. I feel like a dental assistant.
Oh, do you? I can put you to work. You want to get put to work? I can do that. Okay. So there's one. I gotta look at this way. I cannot look in the.
Can you do it backwards?
I cannot do that. I can't even do it frontwards. Oh, good heavens.
That was
There we go. Right
one
there.
more. Yeah, right
okay.
there.
So if you have those both pressed towards the dark, when you flip them together to sew, I don't know if you can see. Deb, we might have to take this off to show something, but you can net here. Where am I?
Take it off the screen.
Ah, there we are. There we are, guys. You can nest those together so that your two seams are butting right together when you stitch. I found by doing that, I didn't have to pin. Some people may be more comfortable actually pinning, but if you kind of rub them, your fingers in the opposite directions, right where they're joining, that will snug them right together, and you'll feel when they're nested together, and then you can stitch down. Right?
Do you want me to do that, Teach?
You go right ahead. Knock yourself out. So the other thing while she's stitching those that I want to point out is, once again, do what I say, not what I do, because guess who made a boo-boo? That would be me. See if I've got some here to show you.
If we were perfect, then nobody wouldn't have anything to laugh about us.
I probably can't find it now. There it is, right there.
You did something not perfect?
Well, no, yeah, I did. I made a complete boo-boo. So when you're making your 56 and laying out your 4 half square triangles, this is bigger because I want to demonstrate something later and it was easier to see if it was bigger. When you're laying out your 4 individual half square triangles, make sure that however you lay them out, they're all being laid out the same. Because do you see here where the color is on this one? And do you see here where the color is on this one?
What do you mean?
See?
Oh, you did, but it's still a pinwheel.
It is, but if you want that uniform look throughout your quilt, so again, it's totally up to you, but if you want a uniform look throughout your quilt, either always put this starting triangle going the same way, like that, or you're going to end up with different. See, if they were to touch, you see what's going to happen?
Right there.
Now, I'm not saying, because we're not telling you yet whether they're touching, but just for future reference, do you see what happens if you're not careful to put them all the same? So, just be sure that you always lay them out in the same manner, especially if in your quilt pattern they have to touch, okay?
So this is the way I did this one, am I right?
Yep, you're right.
I'm right?
You're right.
Woo-hoo.
Okay.
So let me hold this up.
Yeah.
I just did, so this one, you want to hold that one?
Sure.
And then I'm going to join this one.
So, again, press towards your dark.
Okay.
And then, when Deb holds those together, she'll have one seam going that way, one seam going this way, and they will nest very neatly.
Whether or not I sew them neatly is another story.
And this is where using your 1/4 inch accurate seam allowance will make your points line up better. Now, you can also pin those if you feel more comfortable pinning.
We forgot to turn that over to iron on it.
Oh yeah, we did.
I'll lift this up while you
Okay.
flip it over. Just a second, we gotta turn our mat over. We've got the cutting mat there and not the ironing mat.
Okay, there we go.
That was quick and painless.
Until they're probably feeling
Dizzy?
wobbly, dizzy, whatever. Okay,
So I'm gonna.
I'm going to take this thing out because.
I'm gonna take it out because I'm gonna, or one of us, yeah.
Okay.
So that I can point right at what you're doing.
Yeah. Okay. There we go.
We're doing it.
Okay.
I'm gonna rotate it just a sec.
So she's going to make you dizzy probably.
Okay.
Okay. So Deb has got this all sewn together, right?
I don't know if it's right, but it's sewn together.
It is. And she also didn't iron anything in the process, which is fine. But I'm just going to show you on the bigger blocks after I iron these because it's easier to see what I'm saying. So I had to research this method because I keep hearing about this method called spinning your center of your pinwheels. Because you will see that you have quite a gob here in the center. So when you actually look at that, you have like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Like you've got like 8, 9 layers of material right there in the center.
It's probably 8. It would have to be an
8.
even number.
Okay. So my mathematical skills are lacking in the morning. Haven't had coffee.
Oh, sorry,
Yes. So
stop
8. So 8. So that makes quite a lump. Now you have a couple different options. Some people will actually press this open. But there's a lot of controversy about that, and we may as well talk about that a little bit.
You want to say, I don't like to have the seams open, because when I put a quilt in the quilt frame, and you're pulling the seams taut, because that's what you do when it's in the quilting frame, if that quilting needle comes right through one of those threads, then you've just potentially broken a thread.
Right.
And a seam can come open. If it's folded over, it's less likely to happen.
Right.
That's why.
So when that is folded over, like this seam here, and you
Yeah.
pull on it, you can't even hardly
You can't
see
see
your,
a seam.
like you're pulling on material, not just stitches. When it's pressed open like this one is, and you
Look
pull
what she's-
on that,
You can see. You can see.
I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but you can
You can't,
see
'cause
the
I got a
stitches
really
in the
tight-
seam.
Yeah.
So that is the downfall. Now that being said, there are a lot of well-known quilters
That swear by it.
that swear by it, especially in small little blocks,
Pieces, yeah.
in small pieces to get flat seams, or in places like this.
There's no right or wrong, really. It's just a preference.
It's whatever you prefer. The other thing I've heard, the other argument in favor of pressing open is that years ago thread wasn't the quality it is today either.
True.
And that it was probably weaker and easier to break your thread than it is nowadays, right? That thread is tougher. So there's a lot of pros and cons to both sides. So one thing that you can do to minimize your bulk in that is trim these dog ears.
Do you want a pair of scissors?
Well, it doesn't matter.
This is only a quilt shop, so
Yeah,
it's
so
not
you
hard to
would
find
trim your dog ears at this point. So you see how those, oh, look at this, we have embroidery scissors. See those dog ears? I would just trim those suckers back. And that's going to eliminate a little bit of bulk in those seams. What'd you say?
They're suckers, are they?
Yeah, sorry. I'm not very professional, am I?
Neither am I.
So another tool that you have at your disposal to help with those centers is the handy dandy Acorn Precision Piecing Pin. So when you have all those bulky seams there together, if you just take this pin, which has like a little nib thing, it's filled with the Acorn Precision Piecing stuff. And if you can show there, I just daubed it there, and can you see the wet spot there? Yeah. And then when you iron that, you will be amazed at how much flatter that will make that. So this is a really good tool for that. It seems like it relaxes the material there in the seam or something and allows it to sink together when you press it. Man, that iron's dirty. Anyway.
Don't say that. Somebody wants that.
The other thing, this is the piece that I had to actually research. Do you see this little dinky thing?
Isn't that cute? It almost makes the quilt reversible.
So this is called spinning your seams. So, and I am so slow, you guys. I had to watch that video like 10 times.